Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting tutorial. It's been a while and I've been busy with some projects. So I was on YouTube and I saw this challenge by DesignCourse, challenging Kevin Powell, the CSS master, to code this layout. And I thought, okay, what would it be like if we did this in Oxygen? So he has a link here, to the PSD file. So I downloaded the PSD file and went ahead to export this asset. So I'm going to show you the process of building, from exporting this asset to optimizing the image and building the site. I'm going to try to be as fast as possible, and that's just because I've actually done this, and I've tried it out, and then I want to be as fast. The reason I tried it out first is because I know that this is the kind of layout that is going to take a while to do, especially if you want to take responsive mode into consideration. So you want to build it in such a way that when you want to, switch it to responsive, you won't have issues, especially with the typography. And we have a lot of absolutely positioned elements, here, like, from when you look at this layout, you're going to know that you're definitely going to have some absolutely positioned elements. Now, the first thing is you have to look at the layout and plan out what are you going to do. You just don't jump in and start building. You have to look at this layout now. So what I'm seeing here is a section that is full width, okay? And then I'm seeing a div here, okay? So that's a div, and let me just, I'm using some Photoshop select tool to do that. Okay, so I have a div here, okay? And then I have two divs inside, so you have here and here, okay? And then inside here, now because these three columns don't span to the end, I would want to use paddings to control them because they might be a bit difficult. So I think it will be good to place another div inside, okay? And then set it to maybe a width of, say, 80%, okay? And then inside that, then we place the three columns, all right? And then each of these column, is going to have an image on top and another div where you're going to place these text elements, okay? And because you want to be able to give these paddings without affecting the image, all right? And we're going to work heavily with classes because it's going to make our work easier, especially when you go down to responsive, and of course because it's best practice. All right, so now how I took this image from Photoshop is like, if you're not familiar with Photoshop and you open it for the first time, you could just simply right click, and then whatever you right click on, it's going to show the list of everything that is tagged under where you're right clicking. So here is just the background and the bands graphics. So if I select the bands graphics, now nothing seems to be selected. Show transformation control is selected, so I'm going to just go view, show extras. Okay, so it's going to show anything that is selected. Okay, so I can see this is selected, and with that selected, I can go to the layers panel and then hit alternate and click on that layer, and that is going to hide every other layer except that one. So I'm going to go to image trim and click OK. So that is going to trim this image to its size. I mean the whole artboard to the size of the image. And then now we're going to export this image. Now I'm not going to do that for all of them. This is just for you to see. And if this image did not have a transparent background, we would export it as JPEG. So we go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. Okay. And then now if it were to be an image without a transparent pixel, we would use JPEG, and then we'll make our adjustment. But we see if we use JPEG, we're going to give it a white background. So we're going to use PNG 24. Okay. And then for the size, we're just going to leave it like that. But I'm looking at that Photoshop file. You can see that this doesn't span all the width of the screen, and most of the time our screen is just almost about this size. So let's make it about half, let's say 600. For optimization, let's just make it 600 pixel, so that we can be working with optimized image size. So now so I can just save that, and I've already exported and saved all these things. Okay, so that is how I exported them. I'm going to undo that twice. Okay, so I exported these. Let me go to auto select so I can just select what I want. All right, how to select, checked, select this. I want to select this, yeah. So I exported that so I can use it for, you know, that shiny stuff. I exported this. So this definitely, you know, an image, the glare. And I also exported the background. Now the background is made up of two. So you have the background, you have this. Okay, I've already worked on this. So if I undo, take it all the way to where I started, you could see that the background, yeah, it's made up of the BG and the background, like these two layers. So this BG is what have this texture, okay, and then this is what have the color. So I'm just gonna click both of them and press Ctrl E to merge the two of them, and then I'm gonna hold Alternate I, then export it as JPEG. Now if you're exporting a background like this, you know, I'm using a shortcut to do that. Now you're gonna make it JPEG, okay, and then the size. Now if you're going to be planning to, if you're using a kind of background that you're going to be planning to use fixed background where you scroll past the background will not be scrolled, okay, so you could leave it at this kind of dimension, because you need something really big like that to have a fixed background, because it's going to zoom it in and you don't want the quality to drop. But if you're using as a normal background, non-fixed, it's just going to scroll with the page, you could just make it the page width and maybe, or slightly bigger, so like something like 1600 pixel, and then you could export it. All right, so so that's basically it. So so I exported the things that I need to export, these image and this one, okay, this image. I don't know why it's that big, you know, but okay, I guess it's because of how they brought it in. Now, while I was exporting this image, I found out that it wasn't the same size, the same height as these two. So I had to bring it back to Photoshop and just make it the same height as these two, because just for consistency. All right, so let's go back to, all right, so I have Oxygen here open, and initially I was thinking of using this Oxygen with the add-ons that I use, but I decided, okay, since people, if you've seen my screenshot on Facebook, you see that the interface is a bit different because I used other add-ons like Swiss Knife and Hydrogen. But I figure maybe a couple of those who are going to be watching this are not going to use those plugins. So I just want to make it work with a familiar interface. So another thing is, if you work with, you know, now if you go to a website called TinyPNG, you know, to optimize your image, you just go pick up all your, you know, everything that you downloaded, okay, and just take it to that website, just drop it here, and then it's going to upload them and then start compressing them. Now for some of these I've already compressed some of them, so you can see the compression rate is very low, but well, so yeah, so you see the size before 13 to 5.9, 39 to 38, 150, 1 to, so it compresses this and you can download all of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is to add a section. So I'm just going to add a section, and then from our PSD we can see that that section is 100% viewport width. So I'm going to make it 100% viewport height, and then I'm just going to quickly drop the background, okay. All right, so I have that image. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to add a div in that section, and then of course I want to make it I'm going to centralize it, okay, so just put it at the center, okay. All right, so I just want to put it there at the center, okay, and then I'm going to make it 100% width, okay. All right, so we find that, you know, it's not getting to the very end, you know, of our section. So to solve that, I'm going to select the section and then go to size and spacing and change it to full width, okay, and it's still not getting there, but the section has a default padding of 20. I'm going to change that to, so inside this section I'm going to add two divs. So I'm just going to go add a div and just duplicate that and stack them horizontally, and one of the divs I want to make it 45%, and the next one is going to be 55%. So if you can see here, this side is a bit smaller than this side, okay, and so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is just to start bringing in this stuff. So I'm going to start with the image, then text, then this heading, the button, and all that. So first of all, I'm going to drop an image element. Okay, and then I'm going to select that glare, drop it there. So that's the glare, and I'm going to add the text. Okay, so I'm just going to make it a heading. Okay, so probably no, let me make it a text. So let me undo that and just add a text, and then I add a heading. Okay, now I'm gonna select now to I think before going ahead, I think I'll have to start naming this stuff, because as we go along it's gonna get really a bit complicated, and then it's gonna be difficult to you know. So I'm gonna name give these classes, and then name this. That's gonna be painstaking, but it's gonna be worth it in the end. So I'm just gonna call this just gonna call this main container. All right, and then oh yeah, that's the main container, and then there are two divs here. So this one is gonna be design div left, okay, DDL, and then this is going to be design div right. So I just want to use the this word design to name them, and then we've already given this attribute, so I'm just going to copy from that and then delete. So, and the same with this, I'm going to copy to that class, that's from the ID to the class, and then delete the I'm going to delete that style from the ID, so those styles will remain with the class. Okay, so for these I'm going to just set the typography of the div. By the way, let's name this. So I'm going to rename this as main container, and I'm going to rename this as DDL. So, and this as DDR. Okay, so so for these I want to set the typography of the parent element to text white. Okay, and I want to quickly do something. I want my display font, okay, my heading font, to be Poppins. So I'm just gonna go to setting, global styles, and my heading, my font. So the display font, that is the heading font, I want it to be Poppins, so that I won't have to change all of them all the time. And for my text font, I want it to be Roboto. Okay, all right. Okay, so that does it. Now you could go ahead and set up a lot of stuff here, but I just don't want to. I want to focus on this build. All right, so the next thing is to add a button. So I'm just gonna add a button there. Okay, now I mentioned that, okay, for these we're gonna need to have another div here so we can center them together, okay, in the middle of that. So I'm just gonna from the text, okay, I'm gonna, now we have this problem with this thing moving. So this is the reason I usually use add-ons. Okay, so if I use Swiss knife, I won't have this issue. I'm not going to have this issue at all, where because of the drop downs. Okay, so we're just going to manage it like that. Okay, all right. So for these, yeah, so I'm going to wrap this text with a div, or let me just drop a div right there, and then start moving this stuff inside the div. So I'm going to move the text inside the div. All right, so this text goes inside the div. All right, so I'm going to expand that and move this heading. So it's not moving. All right, just move it in the div. So it's sometimes better if you move it, above the one that you have. I'm using Oxygen 3.8 beta 1, so I just want to, play with that. Okay. So they are inside the div, and this div, I want this div to be just something like this, with about So that should be about, you could experiment with it, but a, you know, maximum width, say 350 pixel. Okay, and then this, I'm gonna set this to I'm gonna set the parent div, so I'm gonna set that to the center. Okay, all right. And this button, yeah, for this one, I'm gonna set everything to the left. Okay, all right. So we have so I'm gonna just copy this text. What's that? I'm gonna copy this text and paste it here. Okay, and then for this, I'm gonna do the same. Don't show this again. So I'm gonna copy that and paste there. Okay, and for the button, what is there? View more. View more. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to just make this smaller. Okay, now because we're going to be working with complex layout and into responsive mode, I want to take the time to set up the typography using clamp. Now normally we would have set that you know, in the settings, you know, in the global settings, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just gonna use my unit. Okay, clamp unit. So what I want to do is I'm gonna use the rem. Okay, so if I make this 1 rem, now that 1 rem is equal to the root, you know, font size. So if I go to global setting and you go to fonts, sorry, you go to body text, that body text is 16. Okay, now if that means 1 rem is equals to 16, if 2 rems equals to 32. Okay, now if I take, if this were to be like say 14, 2 rem would, you know, be, okay, no, that's not correct. The rem actually has to do with the root. So this is a body text. Okay, so that means we are working with M. Okay, but some people could argue that you have to use rem, which actually is a better idea, and you could just do a bit of a research, you know, on that, and you'll find out. You check out the videos by Digital Ambition, you know, on YouTube. He's a member of the Oxygen community. He has some very cool tutorial on that. So okay, all right, so I'm gonna use the rem. Actually, I'm still gonna use the rem. Okay, because the rem is still 16. It's just that we are able to change this right now, and we have to use style sheet to change the HTML font size, but this is the body font size. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna use rem, but what I want to see is what size do I want my text this to be. Okay, is 1 okay? I still have 0.8, 0.6. Okay, so you see, so 0.6 is kind of giving me what I want, but will it give me what I want if I just give it that one spacing late? Okay, all right, so it's cool. So now I know that 0.6 is okay for me. I'm just gonna use that, and I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna take note of that 0.6, and then I'm gonna go here to this web semantics REM clamp calculator, and then make sure that these two are chosen, and then I'm just gonna go from 0.6 to now that is my, sorry, this is my maximum value, from 0.6 to, let's say, 0.4, because I suppose that if I come to this breakpoint, I would want these to be, let's say, 0.4. Okay, that's too small. At least 0.5. Okay, so let me remove that. Okay, and I'm gonna remove this also. So so I'm gonna give it from 0.5 to 0.6. Okay, so that's what I want that text to be, and then I have this, you know, calculated out. So I'm gonna copy that you know, just from there to there. I'm going to copy that and then come back here. So let me just close all these other ones. I'm come back here and then I'm going to set the unit to none, and then I'm going to paste that. Okay, so we see that if it automatically calculates between the different, let me clean this out. So it automatically calculates between the different breakpoints. Okay, so the font size. So you don't need to adjust the fonts every time you move. You don't need to adjust the font size every time you move. So it just automatically calculates it. So we're going to do the same to this heading. Okay. So I'm going to go to rem unit, and then I just want to move this to see. Okay, so that is about it. So 5 rem. Now I'll have to just change the line height to something like 0.8 so that it would close in this much. Okay, now if I go to, now we see that the biggest size we want is 5 rem. Now if we go to the smallest size, what unit of rem do we need? Let's say 2. 2 is not good. 3. So if this, this is not going to stack horizontally here. So but if this were to stack, so I think 4 rem would be good. Okay, for this size. So I'm just going to go from 5 to 4 rems here. So the maximum. Okay, so the minimum is 4, 5. Okay, so 4, 5. And then I'm going to come down here and copy that calculation. Of course, let me remove that from there. Just remove that from there. And then here, I'm going to set it to none. And then I'm going to paste that. So you see, if we move from here to here, we don't have any issues. Okay, so for the button, we're just gonna quickly, add a gradient. So for this button color, I'm gonna make this base color like that. Okay, but let's go and drop a gradient on the button background gradient. So I'm gonna add 2 colors to it. Okay, and I'm gonna select this color. So in Photoshop, if you hit the letter I, you're gonna bring out the eyedropper tool. So I'm just gonna click on this and then copy that color. Okay, and just put it here, and then I'm gonna do the same here. Just copy that color, and then put it here. Okay, now I'm gonna change the angle to 45 degrees. Now nothing is showing, so I'm gonna go back to the primary and just delete. Yeah, what's going on there? Okay, so yeah, all right, so it's showing now. Okay, so it's showing, and the button that they have here is it spans from all the way here to here. Okay, so almost to the end of the V. All right, so and that is to give it a padding. But before we do that, I'm just going to go to typography and set it to uppercase, and then I'm going to choose the display font as the font family and the font weight as 500 or 600, and then no letter spacing. And I'm going to go to the size and spacing, and I'm going to give it a padding. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a padding in the rem unit. So let's try 3 rem. Okay, and 3 here. All right, so that's about correct. But if we did, like, say 2.4 here and 2.4 here. Okay, so that is more accurate. So, and then the button has the button, so we might need to make some more adjustment, but let's go ahead. Let's continue. The button has a rounded, more rounded. So I'm going to go to the borders. So the border is more round. Okay, set the border to none. Okay, all right. Okay, so we're just going to give it a spacing So for this top, for this text, I'm just going to give it maybe a bottom margin. Okay, so I'm going to set the margin to, I'm just going to work with rem in everything. Sorry, padding. Oh yeah, the margin to say 1. Okay, is that right? So let's go. Yeah, that's about right. And then for this, I'm going to set it to 2. Okay, so that looks fine. Okay, that looks fine. I think even though it's more like it's a bit more than the 2, like 2.2. Okay, let's just make it 2.5. all right. Okay, and this I think we need this to fill in the minimum width of that. So I'm going to go back here and then remove that clamp. And then I want to see what units, because I thought 5 was okay. All right, so I'm just going to try 6. 5.5. Okay, so it seems 5.5 does, let's see. Now the problem I'm having is that this keeps breaking. Okay, so let's go back to the heading. Why does it break when it has not come to? Yeah, so I guess that's the problem I had. Okay, so it shouldn't, because of the way I copied it. So, and the div that houses them, let's go back. I don't want that div to don't want that div to be bigger than, okay, we've set a maximum width. So yeah, so let's go back to that heading and then hit 6. Okay, now if I hit 7, you see it's going out of the div. So we're sure that as long as it is not out of the div, it's okay. So we have 6. So instead of using 4 to 5, we're going to use 4 to 6. Okay, so that works better. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this. Honestly, it might seem like this is a waste of time, but trust me, when you get to responsive editing, oh my god, if you don't do this, you're going to waste so much time. Okay, so so that calculation leaves us, okay, that looks good. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna, we will keep adjusting if anything is not right. Now for this image, we want this image to be absolutely positioned here, okay, on top. So I'm gonna set this to position relative, the parent, okay, and then the image, I'm gonna set it to position absolute and then set the top to 0. Okay, and then I'm gonna give this a padding to bring that down. So padding top, so just give it 3 rem or 4. Okay, so that's about right. And then it's time to bring in this it's time to bring in this other image, this one. So I'm going to add an image to that div. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and select this. Okay, taking time to display. I wonder why. Okay, while it is doing its thing, for some reason, honestly, I don't understand. Just to have a clearer view of what is happening here, I'm just going to give this the background, this background color. So I'm just going to select that background color. Okay, yeah, that is it. And then I'm going to copy it and just drop it here. But you have to include the hash for it to work. Now I need this to stretch all the way down. Okay, so I'm going to select the parent. Okay, so this DD, okay, so the parent is the main, and of course, so this was up. I didn't delete this. Let me delete the star from the ID. Okay, and then on the class, I'm setting it to stack horizontally, and I want it to stretch. So that gives us a perspective of what is happening. And the main container is supposed to be 100%. Did we do something with that? I think when we we moved stuff to the class, we did not set that width again. So let's set that width. Okay, so now it's 100%. So if I hide this, you can see it stretches from end to end. But what you're seeing here is that this shoots down. So if you take the ruler all the way here, you can see that this, you know, shoots all the way down. So that means it has to be positioned. It has to be positioned absolutely. So I'm just, since the parent is already relative, I'm going to go ahead and position it absolutely. And yeah, that collapses. And I want to bring it down. So to bring it down, I want to use viewport max, because I found that let's use pixel first. So if I make this 0, okay, or negative, let's say negative 50. Okay, so that brings it more than I want, negative 20. Okay, so that brings it down. Okay, but let's see. Now, if we go to other breakpoints, let's see what will happen. So it's okay. It's kind of, but it jumps out. I guess at this breakpoint it really doesn't matter, but you know, it jumps. So even though, yeah, it jumps out of this, but you know, if we use viewport max, okay, let's say we use, let's say like 7v max, of course it's going to be on the negative. Okay, so I'm just going to hit negative. All right, make it 5. All right, so if we use 5 viewport max, that's a unit. So it's going to calculate, what that means is going to calculate you know, based on the maximum screen orientation. So if the width of the screen, you know, is the maximum, it's going to calculate 5% of the width. If the height, like if you're using it on a mobile device, if the height is the maximum screen size attribute, okay, it's going to use the height to calculate 5% of the height. So that's what it means. So if I move this, it's still about the same as using pixel, but generally it's usually more reliable in calculating. And one thing I've noticed is that the button, you know, does not scale, it's not responsive. So I'm going to just go here to this icon and hide this for now. I want to work on the button. So what we did with the button was, like, we used rem, okay, for the button. So and we used 2.4. Now 2.4 rem, if we go all the way down here, we want that size to come down a little bit, say 2 or 1.2, okay, 1.2. And then the text size, we want it to come all the way down. What was it? It was, we didn't even give it a size. So let's give it a size and see what size this is. In rem, this is 16. Okay, that's 1 rem. But if we go all the way here, we can give it 0.5 rem. Okay, so that's not good. All right, so that is like 0.8. So we have a maximum of 1 and a minimum of 0.8. Okay, so let's just delete that and come all the way here, and then we have from 0.8 to 1. Let's just make it 1.2. So 0.8 to 1.2. Okay, for the button, so that it will be fluid. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this to none and paste that there for the button. And you see, if we go down, so it's reducing in size. Okay, and how about the padding? So the same thing with the padding. Okay, so we had 2.4. If we go all the way down, I think that 2.4 is still good. I think the problem was with the text size, but yeah, I think the problem was with the size of the text. So we've sorted that out. Okay, size of the text has come down. If we need the button to go down, we could always add that clamp unit to it. So yeah, so this text is supposed to be a bit longer than this. Okay, so we had our maximum value. So we're going to change that maximum value to 7. Let's see how it is. Okay, so it's not really changing anything. So we need this to be bigger, okay? So yeah, so we're going to change it from 0.5, you know, to 0.7. So all we're using was 0.5 to 0.6, so 0.6. And let's see how it is. What did I do? Okay, point. That should be point. Okay. What did I do? 0.5 to 0.7. Okay. Okay, so it's still not giving me what I want. Okay, so I'm just gonna edit it from here. So I'm gonna give it 0.8 here, and then of course, you know, it's kind of, you really can't edit it from there, you know, so to be fine, except you really know what you're doing. I don't know the clamp calculation, so I'm just gonna stick with these. Okay, clamp. Okay, so 0.8 just works for me. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna go with that. So that is, you know, you play with that, and once you get your value, you just forget about everything, and everything will fall in place as you go down. Everything will just, you know, fall in place as you go down. All right, let's save that. All right, so I'm going to just bring back this image. Okay, and so now we're gonna add, now let's for the sake of, you know, so we can see what is happening here. So I'm just gonna add a fixed height to this, you know, main container. So I'm just gonna make it a minimum height of, let's say, 800 pixel. Oops, too much. So that looks that looks, I think 550 would work fine. All right, okay, so that looks more like it. So let's start making adjustment now. So now that we have that height, you know, it's kind of becoming obvious that this hard text is too big. Okay, and we're probably on the right path before. So for this, what we made it 6. Okay, so we could just 6 and 4. So I'm just gonna return it to 4 and 5. Okay, so that will just, okay, and okay, all right, let's continue. So for this, we're gonna add this. We're gonna add a div here that will house these 3 columns. Okay, so I'm just gonna drop a div inside there. Okay, and I'm gonna make that this is gonna go, just wanna center it. Okay, and then this will be like 80%. So before that, I'm going to, okay, let me not give it any class because it wouldn't really matter for that. So I'm just gonna make this the width 80 or 90%. Okay, let's just make it 80%. All right, let's look at that. Let's make it 90. It's gonna have those 3 columns. So yeah, and then I'm gonna drop in the first div that I'm gonna use as the column. Now for that, I'm gonna give it a class. So I'm gonna just give this dd column. Okay, design div column, whatever that means. Now for these, I want to make this div like tall. Okay, so because of this, so I want this to, you know, fill in the whole height. Okay, so but it really wouldn't matter, because by the time we put everything, you know, it's gonna fill it in whether it likes it or not. So let's focus on this. So I have that. I'm gonna add the image to that div. Okay, now that div, okay, is called DDL column. So I'm just gonna rename it. And I'm gonna make it 33.3% width. Okay. No, what am I doing? Okay, yeah. So what did I just make 33.3% width? Yeah, that is what I made. Okay, that's cool. Okay, and it has an image. So the next thing I'm gonna drop is another div under the image. So I'm just gonna drop another div. Okay, and of course it's gonna be 100% width. And by the way, our image is also going to be 100% width with the height of auto. And I'm just going to quickly drop in the image. The first one is this one. Okay, so let it work in. For the div, I'm going to drop in a text and a heading. Okay, and the text is gonna be something like a light blue from what we've seen. All right, so just gonna move that. So something like that. I'm not gonna pick the color. So now, okay, our div, we're just gonna set everything to align to, yeah, to the right, and then we're gonna give that. Now that div deserves to be a class. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a class. So dd column. Okay, inner. Okay, I'm just gonna call it that, and then that property I'm just gonna copy it to that class and delete it from the ID. So we're gonna go in and give it a padding of 2 rem. Okay, all round. Okay, and this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that text, et go home. All right, but I'm gonna set this. Now this also needs to be a class, so ddr, okay, dd column inner text. Okay, so that's supposed to be a class, and I'm gonna copy the style to that class and delete it from the ID. And this heading is supposed to be a class also, dd column inner title. Okay, and that is gonna be white. Okay, and then I'm gonna drop a text, and then gonna give it a class. And then for the text color, we're just gonna make it something whitish, dark, something like that. Okay, and then so for this, I'm gonna copy that et. Okay, but it's gonna be uppercase, so let's just make it a uppercase. and we have to decide on the size. So now we're going to use rem. Okay, so the typical 16, so it uses the typical like 16 pixels. So let's try 0.8 rem, just a little bit smaller, so it's just gonna have that feel. Okay, something like that. Okay, our first sighting, the size is H1. So by default, okay, let's just go ahead and just determine the sizes of this. So I'm just gonna make this 3 rem. Okay, 3 is 2. Okay, so I think I like 2, and then if we go all the way down here, I think I would like it to be maybe something like 1.8. Okay, something like that, or 1.6. So I'm establishing the baseline for my clamp calculation. So 1.6 to 2. So I'm just gonna go do that. 1.6 to 2. For some reason, this calculator doesn't take input from the number pads, so that's why I keep clicking. Alright, so I'm gonna copy that and just drop it in here. Set it to none. Alright, now for this text we have a baseline of 0.8, and I think it shouldn't be much different, so maybe 0.6 for, it's going to be really small, so we just leave it at 0.8 rem, okay, for all breakpoints. We could adjust that later, okay. So for this, we also have to establish a baseline for it. So right now it looks like it is 1 rem, okay, which to me is fine. But if we go all the way down, are we okay with 1 rem? Okay, so maybe we'll make it 0.8 rem. Okay, so 0.8 to 1. Okay, but that line height, we have to do something about it. Okay, so first of all, let me tackle the line height. Just make the line height 1. All right, and then so we had 1 to 1 to 0.8, so I'm gonna have 0.8, smallest unit to the biggest unit. Okay, 0.8 to 1. So you're gonna copy that. So the reason it seems like we're really wasting a lot of time is because we are actually doing the responsive stuff while we're working. So that by the time we get to responsive, we will have far less stuff to deal with. So if we go down, you know, our fonts wheel. Now, see the problem there, that we had this div with, you know, with padding of 2 rem, and then when we got down to this breakpoint, you know, things started moving outside, and that's because we still have that 2 rem active here. I see that's the importance of, you know, using calc. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 to 1. Okay, so I'm going to go from 1, okay, to 2. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go from 0.8 to 2. Okay, then I'm going to use that for the left and right padding. Okay, so instead of having to go change this manually in each breakpoint, so we're going to change this to that unit. Okay, so but it's going to be none. Okay, so now if we move down here, so you can see things are looking good. Okay, so you can see that it's smaller here than it was. Okay, so now for this, the text is still shooting out. So our smallest value was 1.6 here, so to 1.6. So let's just go 1.2. Okay, so if I move here, all right, so that works. Okay, so everything falls in. So yeah, so those are the kind of things you spend time doing, and then, oh my god, once you get it right, you get it right forever. Okay. All right, so I think then we have to put this blue stuff, so that's gonna be on this div. Okay, so we're gonna go background, and then we're gonna drop this as a background. Okay, and we're gonna set it to contain and no repeat. Okay, so I'm gonna add a bottom margin, so yeah, here, and I think it's perfectly fine to just add that in pixel, like say 16 pixels. That's too much. All right, let's just make it 0.8 rem. Okay, all right, so the sizing is about that, and then the first sighting, then under here we could just make it 1 rem, the 1.5. okay, that's more like it. And I guess our padding is a bit more than what they have, so we might need to revisit our maximum value, which is 2. So we're gonna go from a minimum value of 0.8 to 1.8. So 0.8 to 1.8 instead of 2. Okay. All right. Okay. Doesn't look like it makes it much better then. It's all right. And the top also, I'm just gonna give it the same value. All right, so let's save this, and then the next thing I want to do is to bring in this shiny stuff here. Now to do that, we're going to use the pseudo element before and after, so and we're going to apply that to the ID. Okay, so I'm just going to put that on the ID. So I'm going to put it on the before element of this ID. Okay, so probably should just change this ID to let's say DD column. Okay, all right, I'm just gonna call it DD. No, let me just leave it the way it was. I don't want any trouble. I'll have to rename all of them if I do so, so let me leave it the way it is, and then I'll go to the before. Now what thing I do is when I work with a pseudo element, sometimes it can be very confusing, so what I usually do is I just add something, and then I add a background color so that I will see what is going on. Okay, oh dear, so I selected the wrong thing. Now this is what I'm supposed to select, so you see what I mean, what I've just been working. Okay, so I'm supposed to select this class, and then this column, and then select the ID for that column, and then go to before. So I'm just gonna put hello and change the background color to red. Okay, so I can see what I'm working with, and then I'm gonna go set the height to 100% of the parent. Okay, then the next thing is to now we're gonna set this column because we need to position this pseudo element absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the original. So the original, is kind of like the parent. So I'm gonna go and then set it to position relative, and then I'm going to come back to the before element and set it to absolute position. Okay, and then the left, I'm just going to make it 0. Okay, and then I'm going to just set the width, okay, of 4 pixels. All right, and that should be big enough to, you know, to contain that straight shiny stuff. Now at this point, I would want to take out that hello. I don't need it. I'm gonna go to background. I'm gonna apply background to the pseudo element, and that's that line. Okay, so it's there. I'm gonna take out this color. I don't need it anymore. I used it for reference, and then I'm gonna set this to contain, and then no repeat. Okay, so if we take a look, so you see we have that. Then what we've seen that this shoots out, you know, from the parent. Okay, so to make it shoot out, we're gonna go back to it, and then the positioning, I want it to, the bottom, I want it to be, let's say 15%. Okay, so see it's shooting out just like that. I think it shoots out more there, so I'm gonna make it 20%. All right, so there we have it. That shoots out well. Okay, so I'm gonna save that, and let's finish everything before we preview. So I'm gonna save that, and then the next thing I'm gonna do is just to duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate that. All right. So let's just go duplicate that column 3 times, and then the div, that is the parent, we're going to set it to horizontal. Okay. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and change these images so that we can quickly have a feel. All right, so I have beam her up, so it kind of looks like our text here are bigger, but then we have 1 line here and 2 lines here. It's all right. Let's continue, and then we'll sort that out if there's an issue. Okay, so so what we had here was that a maximum was 2 rem, okay, and a minimum was just fine. So we're gonna reduce both, increase and reduce on both ends. So what we had was 1.2, 1.2 and 2. So I'm gonna just make it 1 and 2.2. So 1 and 2.2. So it's just you just have to make this adjustment to get what you want. Okay, so it's just a little. How about 2.4 here, and still leave this at 1.2. Okay, so it's not giving me what I want. I want it to be big enough for the other. What did I do? Okay, I think I made a mistake. I copied something I shouldn't copy. Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that bracket. Okay, so so that broke everything. All right, so that, I think that's good enough. So, and if we get to that breakpoint, still small enough. So at this breakpoint, beam her up, get there fast. All right, maybe we should still leave this at 1. Let's try that. I don't know if that will work. Okay, I guess that looks better. So we still have this. All right, let's move ahead. Let's not waste time there. Okay. All right, so yeah, something like that. So here we have a line height is smaller. We have 4 lines of text. Here we have 5 lines of text. So so let me just focus on the line height, which should be 1.2. Okay, I think that's a bit too aggressive. Alright, that should be fine. And then we have 4 lines of text, but I'm just gonna leave ours like this. Alright, so the next thing we're gonna do is so we've duplicated this, and you see I want to adjust this. This one does not shoot out like this, but the whole column moves up, and then this one, the whole column moves back, and then it has its own on the right. So I'm going to just select this column, okay, and then I'm gonna go to the before absolute, and then I'm just gonna take that out, okay, and then let's see. All right, so I'm gonna take that out, and I'm gonna move this column up. All right, so but notice we're not working with the class, we're working with the ID. So I'm gonna go to Advanced Effect, Transform. So we're gonna translate Y, okay, and I'm gonna translate Y up, so upward. So if we put like 50 pixel, that's gonna take it down, but we want it to go up, okay. So that we're gonna make it like -50, okay. I think that's fine. Okay, sorry if you've seen any skipping in the video. Just I'm with my daughter in the house, so I need to. So sometimes I have to go and check up on her. All right, so so this is gonna go up more. So we're gonna make it -100, okay. So that's a -100, yeah. And then this is gonna be the -50. Translate Y -50, okay. So you can see that it moves up a bit, and this other one moves up more, and this one is going to come down more, almost like this, but it's going to be a positive unit. So selecting that, and then this, take note, it's not the class, it's the ID. Translate Y, so we're going to make it 100. Now, so what we're going to do is we need to add this, you know, that line here on the right hand side of that particular div. Now that 100 seems to be a bit much, so let's make it 80. Okay, so let me collapse this. Okay, 80 looks good. All right, so to add that, we're just going to add, now we already have it in the before, we're going to add it on the after. So I'm going to go to that one and go to after. I'm still going to, no need to write hello and all that, just I'm still going to do I'm going to just repeat what I did for, okay, 100%, and then I'm going to add the background, okay, set it to contain, no repeat, okay, and then in this case I'm going to set the left. Okay, let's we are not seeing it yet, okay, so I'm going to go to layout, position, absolute, so it's showing up, but it's on the left hand side, so I'm going to make it to stay on the right, so I'm going to put right 0. It's there on the right, but it's not coming to the very edge. So if I click out here, you can see that it's not coming to the very edge, you know, of the column. So to solve that, I'm going to select that again and then go to the background setting. Am I selecting the right thing? Okay, yeah. Go to the after, all right, and then set the left position to 100. So it's going to shift it. So you see it shifted it to the right, so you're telling it to, you're shifting it from the left 100%, okay, and it moves all the way to the right. So I guess that, you know, so that works. Let's see, do we have, so yeah, it's moving all the way down, okay, like this. So I'm going to, and it seems this one also, the left is moving down also, okay. So instead of going up, this one is moving down. So let's move this first. Okay, so I'm going to go to the absolutely positioned property, okay, of the after, okay, and then I'm going to move it down. So I'm going to go to top. I'm going to push it from the top, 20% from the top. Okay, so you see it's coming down 20% from the top. Then for this one, I'm going to do the same thing on the before, no, not the image, the column, on the before, the absolutely position setting. I'm also going to push it 20% from the top. All right. So you see it's looking good, you know. Okay. I don't know if we are missing something. I think our padding bottom here is just too much. So let's take that down a bit to 1.2. Okay. So yeah. So 1.2 is good. Okay, so what is left? Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's just view what it looks like on the front end. All right, so this looks quite good. If we compare it with this, I know that this is coming down too much, and that's because we really pushed it down with the padding and all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select that that div, okay, this div here. Nope, this. That's where we had the padding. DDL, yeah. We head up to. So as a matter of fact, we don't need that padding anymore because of the you know, the settings we gave it here, okay, this. So we really don't need that padding anymore. Let's look at something else. So it's like this is, let's collapse that. So I think we have us moving towards this. Now we need it to be at the center, okay. So I think we need to make this a bit smaller, okay. So so our div is much bigger than, where's our div? So yeah, a div is much bigger than we want it to be, because we want it to be just about the same size as, you know, this. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that to 300. Okay, 300 doesn't look like it's, so let's try 320. Now let's look at this. So this is just a little bit, you know, bigger than. So I'm going to work on this. So we need to make this just smaller. Now let me delete the whole of this for now. But what was our minimum? Our minimum was 0.5. Okay, so we're gonna go back to rem. All right, and then I'm gonna give it 1 rem is, so that's 1 rem. So let's go 0.5. What does 0.5 look like? Not 1.5, 0.5. Okay, so what we need is about 0.6. Nope, 0.55. So it's just going to be just a little bit, you know, more than this. Okay, so I'm going to make it 0.53. Okay, so that's good. So we're going to go from 0.53. Okay, I think we can just leave it like that throughout the breakpoints, because it's small enough. You know, you don't want anything smaller than that, even at the mobile viewport. So like this, we're gonna just leave that, and then for the div, we're just gonna make that div 300. pixel. So it brings it in, to the center. Okay. So since we are talking maximum width, let's just see how we can. Yeah, I see, that's good. Okay. So that's kind of does it. So a button may have a bigger text width. That is just fine tuning. So we could always do that. All right. So let's refresh this and see what happens. Okay. So we have that layout. So we have these. This is supposed to go up a little bit closer to the button. So I'm going to select that image, and then I'm going to go to the absolutely positioned, and then I'm going to make it a -4. -3. All right, something like that. Okay, so if I push this, -3.2. Okay, so -3.6 it is. All right, so I'm just gonna save that. Okay, so we're basically done. So the next thing is to add this. Okay, and to add that, we just need to, let's go all the way. I want to collapse all. All right, then select this section, and I'm gonna add a div inside that section. So I have a div right outside the section. Now I'm gonna set the section to, position relative, and that's because I want to absolutely position this div. Okay, so I'm going to just set that div to position absolute, and then I want it to be, to stay somewhere here. So it's going to be 60 pixels from the top, and then 60 pixels from the right. Okay, so that brings it here, and then I'm going to just drop in some social icons there. Okay, of course the icon color will be white, and icon size small, spacing between icon. Then I'm going to select this div and just centralize that icon inside that div. Okay, so yeah, so we have that, and it comes down a bit more. So I'm just gonna push it from the top down. Let's use 80. Okay, all right, so let's save that. Now we're gonna go into responsive now. So first of all, let's refresh this and see at what breakpoint do we need to start moving things around. Okay, so I'm going to go to from the iPad. Now for me, honestly, I feel that if you turn an iPad like this, so the iPad landscape, that's 1024, which is this around here. Now the problem with this is these breakpoints are not exactly this screen size. So what I'm going to do is, I've done this before. I usually like doing this so I can have my stuff look good. So those breakpoints, I'll make this 1200. I'm gonna make this 1024, and actually I like making it one step higher, and then this is gonna be 801. If this is a bad practice, please advise me. All right, so of course the breakpoints have changed. I have to regenerate CSS, so I'm doing that now. So but let me refresh this. So regenerating CSS while doing that. Okay, so I think I like the way it is, but when you flip it, so on the landscape, I'll prefer everything this, to start stacking, vertically. So for the iPad landscape, it is okay, but for the portrait, we need to do something. So we're gonna go to that portrait. So this from where you have the portrait, and then for main container, we want to stack these two vertically. So I'm just going to go stack it vertically. I'm going to make this 100%. Okay. and I'm also gonna make this did I make that 100%? Nothing happened. I didn't actually write. Is my keyboard okay? All right, so yeah, moving to the second one, and we're gonna make that 100% too. Okay, yeah, so I did it on the first one, so that's what I did. So the two of them are 100%. Okay, now for this second div, okay, I'm gonna come inside here, and then this, I'm gonna make this yeah, that is supposed to be. So why is this not working? So we have this 100%, we have this, oh, that is pixels, pardon me. You see, this is one of the problems. The contrast is just too poor. It's just too poor, you know, you can't really see what you're selecting. All right, so that's good. Now, so we have those two, and then we need to push this down. So let me explore ways we could do that. We could use a bottom margin, but what if we use a minimum height? So in pixels, so let's say if I have a minimum height, this div being a minimum height of, let's say 600, will it work? Okay, so I like that minimum height of 600, and that helps to push it down, but I think I will make it 500. So yeah, minimum height of 500. But what happens if we go all the way down here? So that minimum height of 500 is still okay. All right, so that means it can be bigger but not smaller. All right, so since we're working on this breakpoint, let's continue. And then I think I'll also at this point try to push it down with a negative margin, so I can push these ones down. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a negative margin of let's say 2 rem. Sorry, not negative margin, a bottom margin of 2 rem. What about 3? Let's see. Okay, so 3 looks okay, and they still interact. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay if they interact. Yeah, it looks fine. Kind of like that. But I would like this to be on top. Okay, so I'm gonna make this top just. But let's explore it first before we start going to do z-index and all that. I think it should come down some more. Okay, it's too close. So I'm gonna just go increase that. So instead of using rem here, I'm gonna use Vmax. Okay, so I'm gonna go to none, and then I'm gonna go to 5 Vmax. Okay, let's try one and see if it's actually working. Okay, it's working, so I'm gonna go 7 Vmax. All right, and here you could see that our typography has, really, adjust properly. Now at this point, so we're gonna do something. So you remember now, why do we have a white space and we don't have that background? Remember that we set our section to be 100% viewport height, and that makes it exactly 100% viewport height, so that when you want to scroll, it does not grow taller than the set height of the viewport. And so we're going to go back to that section. Okay, in this, so we're going to go back there, and then yeah, this was okay here, but from these breakpoints we don't want it to be, now on this breakpoint it's still fine, but from these breakpoints we want the height of the section to be auto, and we want the minimum height to be 100 viewport height. So that means it will not be smaller, but it can be bigger. So you can see that now, as much as the content flows, it comes in to accommodate the content. So and then for this one, in this design, in this viewport size, we're going to center this. Okay, so I'm gonna just center that. All right, so that looks good. And then this doesn't look good hanging just here. So for this viewport height, I wanna for this viewport, I want to remove the padding from the section. I want to remove the top padding from the section. So I'm just going to go and make it 0 so that that shiny stuff will flush on the top. And then, and this is an absolutely positioned div. Okay, so I'm going to set it to the center, and to do that you're going to go to the layout, okay, at that breakpoint, and still click on absolute positioning. We're okay from the distance from the top, but the left right distance, so we're going to move it 50%, okay, left, and then to center it properly, now it's gonna go 50%. To center it properly, we're gonna go to advanced effect transform. Now this is something by now, if you've been watching a couple of Oxygen tutorials, you should know. So to compensate for that shift, we're gonna translate it negative 50%, and then that should bring this to the center. So that is how to center an absolutely positioned element. Okay, all right, so we have that for that breakpoint. I'm gonna save, and if you go back to the portrait mode of the iPad and refresh, so you should have that. So you see, so if you're on your iPad, you see it looks good. Okay, all right, so the question now is, can you read this stuff? So should we move this up, you know? So now since we are here, we can just move this up a little bit. So I'm just gonna move this one, go to ID, it was translate. Okay, so I'm gonna go to effect transform, translate Y. Now it was 80. Now we're gonna return it to say like 50. Okay, nope. How about let's say 0? What does it look like? I think we're moving everything. What am I doing? Okay, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's not what I'm supposed to edit. I'm supposed to edit this. Okay, all right, let's go back. Transform, translate. So it was, I think it was 80, so we're gonna make that 50. All right, so it moves in a little bit. Okay, so for this one, I think it's just nice to move these stuffs a bit around, like let's say 40. Okay, so 40 is good, and I would like to move this one down also by now. Let's quickly go back. Now let's test it and see how it looks. I'm gonna save it. So let's see if it's gonna comply. All right, so it's working. Okay, and then I just want to move this down a little bit. Okay, maybe these two just slightly down. So what we have was negative 50 and negative 100. Okay, so we're gonna just go maybe negative 20 and negative 70. So okay, these are just, you know, fine tunings that's taking time, but let's just quickly. Unfortunately, the builder is beginning to get a bit slow, so it's just unfortunate that sometimes when working with stuff like this, the builder begins to misbehave. So we had a negative 100, so we want to make it a negative, say 70. Okay, how about negative 50? Okay, and then for this one, I want it to be like a negative 20. Or we just leave it at 0. Okay, so let's see. Negative 20. Okay, so negative 20 is fine. So that looks fine at that breakpoint. Okay, so you can see we didn't need to touch the text, we didn't need to touch the paddings, everything is automatically calculated. All those things we wasted time to do is paying off right now. Now if we didn't do that, we will have a whole lot of work adjusting paddings, adjusting font size. It's just gonna be a mess, you understand? So that is why we had to spend all those times fixing it at the beginning. All right, just like building a house, you know, if the foundation is wrong, I mean, you just don't want to imagine what will happen. So let's refresh this. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. I still feel like this should go up and this should, but it's all right. I don't know. It's fine. It's just, should this go up? Should this come down? Should this go up a bit more? I think this should have gone up just a bit more, but I'm fine with that. I want to check something. The parent. So you see the translate is applying correctly. All right. So I think this should go up just a little bit more, just a little bit. So just 70 should be fine. All right. I think, yeah, that should be fine. 70 is good. All right. So now we're going to move to the next breakpoint, which is the phone mobile device. And at that breakpoint, I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to stack this. We're going to set this to 100%. Okay. And yeah, and then because we're working with classes, all of them, you know, adjust automatically. And then we're going to reset all this translate Y. Okay. So I'm going to go in and then fix transform, translate Y to 0. What? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to the iPhone, just refresh. Okay, so it's not working. So you can see that it's still, so you can see the transform property it's not working. So, and this is a problem with Oxygen. It's kind of a bug. If you want to reset the transform property back to 0, it just doesn't work. It's a known bug. So to fix that, we're just gonna go to none and just add pixel like that manually. And then I'm gonna go back to all of them and fix that. So let's save that and then go and check out on the front end. So you can see this stuff. All right, so you see it fills in. Okay, now on this mobile viewport, you can see that these texts are really tiny, so we could make adjustment to that again by recalculating the clamp. But then what I want to do is, now we just don't want to have one big image here and then this one is here. So I want to move this on top of this image and then give it a background, and that is for all of them. And since we are going to be working with the classes, this div has a class, suppose. Yes, it does. So I'm going to work with the classes. So let's just collapse this and do with the first one. All right, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to set this class, this column class, to position relative. All right, layout position relative, and then I'm going to go to that div, and then I'm going to set it to position, no, not the ID, the class. I want to set it to position absolute, so it's going to affect all of them. And then I'm going to set it to sit at the bottom. Now I could set it to sit at the center, but it all depends on how you want it to be. But I want this to show, so I'm going to go and give it a background color with transparency. Okay. All right, so you can see all of them, you know, all of them are affected. And all right, so for these, I think this text is too small. So let's go back and see what, I think I would have loved it to be a bit bigger. Okay, I think here was good. Okay, but here, yeah, it's still about the same size, you know. It's still about the same size. I guess it's because we are looking at it from this. If you're actually looking at it from the phone, I presume it's gonna look better than what it looks here. Okay, so let's see the small phone. So it looks good here. All right, so that's I think that's basically it. So another thing is that we have this, you know, we still have this shiny stuff at the end here. If you want to remove that, how you can do it is to go back to this, you know, we go back to the ID, and then for the first one we had before, okay, so on all devices here we had before, okay, so we go back to the very last. We can just go, and while that before is selected, layout and display none, okay, and we do that to these two, okay, so just go to before. So we don't want to display that before anymore. And for this we had before and after. So for the third one we had before and after. So just gonna go there, display none, and then go to after, display none, and then save it. And then we're gonna get rid of that. Alright, so we rid of that, and we have our design responsive. Now what if you just want to move this in so you can stay under? Well, you can do that. You can always reduce that margin bottom here, but for now I think we are done. iPad Pro, kind of looks funny on the iPad Pro portrait. Alright, so yep, so that's about it. But then I think I would like the top and bottom margin, you know, top and bottom padding here to be bigger. Okay, so I'm just going to override for this. You know, we will set the calculation was supposed to set it to be small, and that is fine. That is good. There's nothing wrong with it. But for because of the type of design, I think we should have a lot of breathing room. So I'm just going to override on that, only on that breakpoint, and just make that, you know, 2 2, okay, for all of them. What am I doing? That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That is not the right thing. So I selected the wrong one. It's supposed to be this div here, okay? Yeah, that's what we're supposed to select. Okay, and make sure we're on the class. Size and spacing, RAM, say 2 2. Alright. Okay, so yeah, it has a lot of breathing room, and I like it that way. So I'm gonna save that, and then refresh. Alright, so I guess that looks fine. And if you have any question, you could ask. And then if you wanted to make this text bigger, now sometimes, to be frank, sometimes I find that, you know, since so one thing I find out that is sometimes you can have this text size here, and then when you go to the phone, even if it's the same size, it doesn't look good. And sometimes I kind of like increasing it just for the phone, maybe the title, you know. So we could also do the same to this and this, maybe especially this, you know. So let's let me select this, and then on that breakpoint, on the phone breakpoint. Now the fluid typography did what it was supposed to do under normal circumstance, but there are times you may actually need to override it, okay? And for this, we're just gonna make this 1 rem. Let's see. Okay, I think that's 1 rem. So what am I doing, for Christ's sake? I think I'm getting tired. All right, sorry about that, guys. I was supposed to change the font size. Yeah, so we have 1 rem. Okay, and then for this, we're just gonna have like 2 rem. All right, so now if this were to be this size on this breakpoint, it wouldn't be good, okay? So but it, even though it's a smaller font size, but on the smaller screen it actually looks better if it is a bigger. So that's just a design thing, okay? So yeah, there are times you just need, so you see we didn't have to do it all across the breakpoint. We just adjusted it only on this breakpoint, and that really made things look good. Let's see the font size here too. This 0.8 rem, that is, yeah, I think that's okay. 0.8 rem should be how many, as long as it's not below 14 pixel. 0.8 rem in pixels. Okay, so let's see. I said 0.8 u. $12 pixels. Okay, 12, but I think it's rather too small. So for this, I think we're going to make it 0.9 pixel rem. Okay, just override that also for this text. Okay, so we're still on that, so I'm going to make it 0.9. all right, and yeah, I think I would like the color to just be a bit more vibrant than what it is on the other breakpoint. Okay, so for the phone, we make, you know, when it comes to the phone, it's a different ball game, so sometimes you really need to make some extra adjustments. All right, so guys, I think that brings this tutorial to the end. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too boring. If you have anything to add, any suggestion, please feel free to add it, and others will learn, and I will learn from you also. Have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe and like and share the video. Thank you.